What the fuck?
So this is pretty interesting. It looks like Moondrop is trying to enter the headphone market for the first time, as, you know, they're an IM maker. And this is their first set of headphones. This is the Moondrop Joker. And we're going to talk about how it's sort of a joke and sort of not, I guess, because I have mixed feelings about this set of headphones. So, you know, let's talk about that. But before we get into the sound, of course, you know, let's get to unboxing it. So inside, the presentation is actually quite nice for a more budgety kind of, you know, headphones. So I do appreciate that, but, you know, aside from that, you're gonna get the headphones, the cable, a 1/4-inch adapter, and some papers, and this is basically about it. Of course, waifu. Before we get into the headphones, let's start with the cable. So the cable you get is actually quite nice. It's fully sleeved, and it is braided into a twist braid that executes into, or I guess combines into, a pretty simple splitter, then executes into, like, the two fat cables that were used to make the twist braid, essentially. Now this is a really nice cable, almost kind of reminding me of my personal cable that's from Apos. That's the Apos Flow cable, though you know, the quality of the Apos Flow cable is still much nicer. I'd say it is more of an expensive cable, but all things considered, we get a pretty decently nice cable with this set of headphones, so this is very nice to see at this price range. Alright, now when it comes to the headphones themselves, they do remind me a lot of, like, headphones from yesteryear, namely like Skull Candy's older builds, like the Hesh 2, as this headphone is very plasticky and very light, and it feels kind of cheap because of this, and so there is that. On the bright side, we do have metal adjusters, which is always nice to see. There is enough padding on top of the head where you're not going to get any sore spots, so when you're wearing the headphones, you're pretty comfortable for long periods of time. So in my use, you know, once again, no sore spots on top of the head, and you also get fairly decent comfort on the ears. This has a lot to do with, like, the ear pads being nicely angled with the headphones, so I do think that does help a little bit for your ear fit if you have large ears like me. At least, you know, not large, but, like, you know, if you have larger-ish kind of ears, it's comfortable. I don't feel my ears touching the drivers, which is good. Also, these ear pads are those kind of moisture-wicking airflow kind of ear pads, as you can see here. It's got that texture, so you are going to feel that on your head. It's not as comfortable as having, like, full-on leather, but on the bright side, you do get better airflow, so you stay a little bit cooler. So those people who are very sweaty, this is good. And if you're a gamer, we're going to get sweaty sometimes, and this is nice for us gamers specifically. Audiophiles, it's a mix, it really depends, but for gamers who are more likely than not to wear headphones for long periods of time, and this will cause us to sweat, this is great to see, even though this is not a gaming specific headphone, which is kind of interesting because this material is actually more commonly seen on gaming headsets and gaming headphones. So it's kind of funny that they put it on non-gaming stuff, so that's kind of fascinating. Maybe they're planning to do something with gaming with this. This is a gaming audio channel, so maybe there's a reason for this. This was sent out to me for review. I can say anything I want about it, but I should say that Apos Audio sent me this. It wasn't, like, sent to me by Moondrop themselves, so it's not like Moondrop is saying, hey, check these out for gaming. You know, I digress. That is the build. They're okay. For the price, I think it's pretty good. Feels pretty decent. The flex is pretty good even when the thing's closed up, though I still just feel a little bit concerned just because of how much plastic we're using here. I don't know the grade, and only time will tell, but I think these feel solid enough to last you a good time, I'd say. So for the price, I'd say it's about right. Alright, now let's get more to the important bits that you guys are curious about, and that is the sound. And what I can say is I have mixed feelings about it because they're mentioned to go for a, you know, these are trying to go for a monitoring style sound, and I thought that'd be all flat neutral. According to my older brother, apparently that's not the case. You're trying to look for details, so you're going to have more focus on the highs, which these things do a pretty good job at in the high range. However, there are some problems with the sound that I personally don't like, and that has to do with the mid-mids where they're kind of scooped out. So let's go through the sound range real quick. So at the low end, the very, very low end, the sub bass and whatever, it's pretty good. There's a slight boost at that low end, so you can get more of that oomph, that thump. As we get to, like, you know, the rest of the bass, it's pretty good. It's relatively neutral and balanced. It's got, like, just enough bass. It's, you know, like I said, good for referencing and monitoring, so that's good. Now, the problem is when we get to the mids, lower mids is okay, but then when we get to the mid-mids, there is a drop. It's kind of scooped out, so there's a deep recession there, causing the mids to sound a bit hollow, especially any sound within the actual mid-mid region. It's just kind of, it's hard to describe. When you, if you were to ever listen to these, you will find that there's something missing in the sound of things that you're used to listening to, and that is definitely that scoop in the mid-range. It does recover, however, as you go to the upper mids, which is fine. That's to be expected. And as we get to the highs, like the bass is relatively balanced and neutral quite well. I think there's a little boosting, but just a teeny bit. But it's okay. Detail's pretty alright. Doesn't get too harsh or sibilant. However, overall, when it comes to the sound quality, cleanliness, and detail retrieval, it's just okay. It's not the greatest. Not my cup of tea, and unfortunately, I don't know if I can say that I like it very much. So I'm a little disappointed, to be honest, because for the same price, you can get earbuds that sound better. And I think it has to do with where the money is spent for materials and whatnot, and all that stuff. So, you have big headphones or tiny little earbuds, so the money gets thrown around in different places. Granted, there are some times when you'll have like IEMs that are the same price and they'll actually sound worse than these, but I can almost guarantee you that will most often, well, not most often, but more likely than not be the case, because I have heard earbuds that are like cheaper than them. A lot of earbuds. I've gone through a lot of earbuds and IEMs that are cheaper than these, and they just sound better. So that's the danger of going from like IEMs to headphones. The money gets spread a little thinner, and sometimes it gets taken away from the sound quality. And working with larger drivers is different than working with little drivers. So there is that. It's just a whole complication of things. I don't know exactly how it works, but that is what I'm guessing, because that seems to be my experience when you go from headphone prices to sound to earbud price to sound. Typically, IEMs have a better price to sound ratio at the cost of some other things. For example, headphones just have an easier time creating soundstage, and that's something these guys do a pretty good job at. Soundstage is it's about average for headphones. So it's not small by any means. It's not very big by any means either, but it's decent. And the size feels okay. It's ovular, but kind of roundish, so that's alright. It's not the greatest thing I've ever heard. Accuracy is alright. It is not pinpoint accurate, but it's generally relatively pretty good accuracy. However, it could be better. And once again, this might have to do something with those scooped out mids. And, it's just okay in that range. So for headphones, the soundstage and imaging is just okay. Now, when we jump into the world of gaming, which is what we do on this channel when it comes to sound, these things are at best okay. They're not great at anything in particular. Like in competitive shooters, they're all right, but the tuning where you get the scoop mids does take away from your tracking abilities a bit. The bass being balanced and having some feel is good because you get some fullness to the sound and helps you track people a little bit in terms of like trying to figure out where they are based on their sound. However, when you're trying to get into like certain sounds like footsteps, where they're stepping on things that have texture like dirt or wood, we got a little bit of missing bits when we're hitting the mid-range. At least the highs will give you some of those details. However, in playing with like the soundstage and imaging, I would just say it's average. It's not like spectacular. Like you're gonna be okay if you're gonna be using these for like shooter games, but there will be better choices out there and also better sounding choices. So there is that. The same thing then also applies to like non-competitive games for almost like the same reasons. That scooped out mid-range just kind of makes things feel it feels like something's missing in the sound. And, once again, that's that mid-range. You lose a bit of sound in that mid-section there, but, once again, they're just okay. Like, it doesn't excite me to wear these and listen to non-competitive games because the sound is kind of boring. It's not like the most immersive sound. It's workable. I can play with them and they sound fine, but every time I use them, I feel like there's just better choices out there that just sound better or give me more rich audio from like the low end to give more oomph in the sound, because that's what I usually like when I'm playing non-competitive games, more open world kind of games. I like more bass, especially the low end, to get more feel in the sound. And these guys are neutral, so as expected, they're just okay. Just like for when it comes to like listening to music as well as like playing more competitive games, that scooped out mid region is still noticeable and does affect how things sound, and it just kind of doesn't sound the greatest in my opinion. So once again, for gaming, it's bleh. There's just much better choices. But of course, once again, I should reiterate that these are designed for like reference monitoring, though I don't know if they did the greatest job at that, because I have heard other reference monitoring headphones and they sounded better, but they were significantly more expensive, so I guess there is that. I'm personally used to using, IEMs, as, this channel usually just has that for the most part, and I don't know if I can recommend these guys at this price to sound ratio for headphones, just because there are just so many more IEMs I can recommend that sound way better, or are also just cheaper than them. And it's, I don't know, I'm just kind of disappointed. From the standpoint of like a full-on audiophile, I had the luck of my brother visiting in the past weekend. He basically said like, it might come down to the drivers, in case, Moondrop is listening to this stuff or whatever. You're in the right direction, but you screwed up in the mids, and from what he believes and what my guess was, we kind of both agreed it might have to do something with the limitation of the drivers. These drivers might not be good enough to push out the sound that they were trying to go for, so maybe that's the issue. But, that aside, that's just for music and whatever and stuff, but, hopefully that'll give some context as to what's going on. I don't want to go too audiophile here because we're just here to talk about sound and if it's good for gaming, and we just decided that it's bleh for gaming and there's just better choices. So yeah, that's it. That's all I got. I guess I'll see you guys next time. I'm sad. I had high hopes, but I should have known when they named it the Joker. So it shouldn't have been a joke.